Welcome back to the good news. You know, it is so cool to find other people in the community that are doing things that benefit the community and also have a heart for their faith, a heart for God. And, 20 years in TV news, and when I started the good news and made absolutely $0 and 0 cents 3 years ago, my husband said, "Are you crazy?" And other people were like, "Why would you step away from a career like that?" Because I knew that there was a need for people to hear things that were positive and encouraging and inspiring, and that there are a lot of people out there who were hurting. And then through doing this, not only do I come into contact with a lot of wonderful nonprofits, but also business people who are doing great things. So Brian Watson is joining us. And Brian, it is so funny how I got you, because we've never met. We've never seen each other. We went to the same college at the same time. And I got you through 5 people because like a friend referred me to someone else, and then they referred me to someone else. And then I got this note. Hey, as a side note, you may be interested in featuring my business partner, Brian Watson, to discuss faith and business. He's a passionate Christian entrepreneur and a businessman who's very successful. I think you'd find him interesting. He founded the Brian Watson Foundation, and here you are.
It's funny how the Lord works.
I know, isn't it? It is so awesome. Well, tell me a little bit about what you do in your heart for faith and business, because it's so refreshing to find a successful businessman who has his heart in the right place.
Yeah, well, thank you. We've been blessed and fortunate. I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and real estate and construction was always a part of that. Grew up in a small Western Slope community of Olathe, and really went out and started my business 16 years ago. And my real focus is to buy vacant buildings to create jobs and opportunity for people. A number of years ago, I had the opportunity to read Bob Buford's book, Halftime. I don't know if you've read it or not. Many have.
I will.
But it's a phenomenal book, and it asks this question of what are you going to decide to do in the halftime of your life? And the beginning part of everyone's life, a lot of time they focus on this thing called success, however you may define that. Oftentimes it's worldly success, money or career, whatever it might be. But as you go into the locker room of life and you come out for the second half of your life in the ball game, what do you want your significance to be?
And that's the halftime?
It's called Halftime, and it's Bob Buford, and it's this idea of going from success to significance.
Oh, I love that.
And
Jim Stovall, a friend of mine, is so much about that he's successful just to be significant to others.
Yeah. I really love it too. And, when I was 16 years of age living on the Western Slope, my stepfather, went away healthy that morning. And that evening he came home at 39 years of age and died on the floor in front of me. At 39, from an asthma attack of all things. Oh. And it really made me question, okay, well, what does that look like for me? And none of us know when the halftime of our life is.
Right.
I may today be in the 4th quarter with a few seconds left on the clock.
No.
Hopefully not, but I might be. Or I might be in the 2nd quarter. But the point of it is to make sure you live your life every day in rewarding to the Lord and understand what your significant impact will be in this life.
I love that whole idea of letting your light shine brightly for others through the good works you do, so to glorify the Lord in heaven.
Absolutely.
And I think so often we get caught in the drudgery of life and forget that our purpose really is to glorify Him, and that we have the opportunity every day to wake up and decide to be extraordinary.
We do. And, I've been fortunate to travel a good part of the world, and in a lot of places where, some people don't often go. And what I try to tell people is that no matter what kind of day you're having today as an American, you have won the historical lottery of all time.
Absolutely.
To live where and when and how we do.
Yes.
Now, we all have challenges. We all have tough times. I get it. But you know what? You live better than kings and queens did many, many centuries ago. And to say, okay, what am I going to do? And, we decided part of that book is this idea of taking your passions and turning it into your profession. I can tell by listening to you and what you do that you're doing what you love. And because your work is such an integral part of your life, you spend a bunch of time usually at your job in some way or another. You might as well enjoy it.
Right.
And whether you're taking out the trash, whether you're, making artwork or taking pictures, whatever it is that you do it in a glorifying way, in a way that can really make a positive impact for others.
I love it that you say that, because recently I said there's a book called God is Always Hiring, and the woman told me that wrote it, every job can be magical. And I think of one of my frequent guests, Mr. Clark. He's a janitor at a high school in Texas. And I found him on the CBS Evening News. And he has so many awards, he can't even fit them on his walls, because 26 years ago, almost 27 now, when he became a janitor, He thought he'd only take it for like 6 months. And he said, Angie, I'm so blessed God planted me here because he's influenced so many young men who don't have fathers. And he says, when they know you love them, they will buy what you are selling. And so he checks in with them every single day. The counseling department refers them. He has no PhD. He has no degree. He doesn't have good grammar. He has love to give and advice. And he said also, he told me, if you go into one of my bathrooms at the high school, it's the cleanest bathroom you'll ever go into because if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing right. And he saved so many boys from prison who've now gone on to college. And he said that this is the biggest blessing ever. That it makes me just cry thinking about him. And so that, like you said, take your passion and turn it into your profession. He took his passion and as a janitor has more influence possibly on these boys than anyone else in their lives.
Yeah. You bring up a really good point. I say often that go out onto any street corner and ask the person passing by, what do you think about Christians? What comes to mind when you think about Christians? And sadly, I would say a good majority of the people would talk about what Christians are against versus what we're for. And one of the things that I want to do in my life and my walk with the Lord is to be known first and foremost for my love and my service. And if you think about that, how transformational that could be. And it's biblical. I mean, think about how Jesus transformed, the world through that. This idea of loving and to going in and loving on people that, you might not have a lot in common with or may not even like you. But your job is to love and to serve, and then the Lord does the rest of the work. And that's really what our focus is try to figure out how we can love more intentionally and more effectively every day.
So you talked, Brian, about taking your passions and turning them into your profession. And I always talk to people about, what makes your heart sing. And so, because I just this weekend I did a Christian women's conference, and several women said they didn't know what to do with their lives or didn't know which direction to go. And I said, well, think about what makes your heart sing. And sometimes it's not financially beneficial to you to do it, but, kind of put your toe in the water. So how have you taken your passions and turned it into your profession, or how have you taken your success and your business success and kind of intermingled that with your passions for your faith and for people and for love and service?
Yeah, well, again, I'm a commercial real estate guy. I grew up in a family for that. And our focus as a company for 16 years has to go in to buy vacant buildings. And a number of years ago, I made that transition from my passions to my profession. I said, you know what? What really drives me is buying a vacant building to create jobs and opportunity and empower people. Because as we buy these buildings, people go into them and to go achieve their dreams, what it looks like for them. And then, in addition to that, be able to take some of those resources that we make and, through my foundation and other things, figuring out how we can give in an intentional way. One of the things we recently launched also is an education opportunity fund for charter schools. To me, education is one of the most important issues in America today. And frankly, it's one of the civil rights issues of our day, I would say. And so we have been going out and buying vacant buildings in economically challenged areas around the country to create opportunity and choice in education to empower parents as well. So again, we work with space, and you think about what can you do with space.
Right.
We always are willing to donate space. We just last year donated 70,000 square feet to the U.S. Marines for their Toys for Tots program. One of my buildings, we're constantly donating space to different entrepreneurs and people, and just figuring out how we can be more effective and intentional there.
Because so many people can't do what they want in terms of their nonprofit work because they can't afford space to help others.
It is. In most organizational structures, space is usually the second highest cost item behind employees.
Yeah, wouldn't it be?
And you think about that. One of the other things that we've been doing is buying vacant buildings to create business incubators. So one of the ones that I bought is in the Denver Tech Center. Bought an 80,000 square foot office building. The Innovation Pavilion is in there. 80 companies have been founded or grown in that space.
Wow.
The youngest entrepreneur is in middle school. The oldest is in his 80s, and everything in between. And after that, we went out in Aurora, and we bought a vacant building for the African community. These are people who left Africa, everything. These are Christians as well. It's pretty neat. They left everything behind, their family, and they came to America and looking for the American dream. So we bought this building for them, and it's going to be opening here in the next few weeks. There's going to be a African Cultural Center where you can go in and learn more about Africa and different things about it. There's going to be a food court where you can try all different kind of food. There's an event center and then a little business incubator so that these Africans can go out and achieve that American dream. So we're excited about it. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, how does it make you feel?
Well, we've been blessed, and for me, it's not about us. It is about the Lord, and I feel fortunate that at times He chooses us on a good day to maybe try to make a positive impact, and we just want to be faithful in that, because it's not about us at all. It's about going out and trying to be faithful and to be a good steward of what we've been entrusted with. That's my prayer. Two prayers that I have is one. Lord, your will and not mine. And that's a pretty powerful prayer. As you know, sometimes you got to be careful how it may be answered. May not be the answer you want. And then also just to be a good steward with those things that we've been entrusted with.
It's interesting. A lot of people think of giving, and they think they have to be a Brian Watson, Brian. They think they have to be like you. And I think one thing that I try to get across, and that one of my newer girlfriends who came in here, who's also got a foundation, and they do a lot of giving monetarily. She said, Angie, every day that you have a nonprofit on your show and you give them free exposure and talk about what they do, that you're giving, and it made me cry, because sometimes you want to do more, you want to give more, but, I feel like I'm kind of a microphone for Jesus. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about education, I so respect that you're helping kids get education, because I do truly believe it's the key out. And in this women's conference that I just did, we talked about in my background, I lost a brother to murder, brother to meth addiction. He's still homeless. I don't know where he is. A dad to alcoholism, an uncle to an overdose who died a couple of years ago, and my cousin who became a meth addict probably in his teens. Just like that, I felt my escape was education. And so when I was going to see you, when you were going to see you, I worked 7 days a week at Boulder Community Hospital, all through Fairview High, which is in Boulder, and all through college, because and I worked as a cleaning lady, girl, whatever I was. I cleaned the morgue, the emergency room, the operating room, labor and delivery. It was not glamorous. It was embarrassing. But I knew that if I could get an education, so every night and every weekend, and then I would take my vacation time off for finals, and I graduated with honors. And I'm telling you right there, that is that and my faith, because I found God when I was in like a foster care situation. So my message to people, to young people that are in a horrible situation, is your choices. Rather than emulate the people that may be around you making horrible choices, which we see over and over again, people growing up in bad situations doing the same things their parents are doing. I try to teach them to make the choice towards education and, of course, faith. If I'm allowed at my speaking event to say, that I'm a Christian, I usually, sometimes they, if you're hired, they don't let you say Christianity, or they'd prefer you not. So I'll say my faith. And I think it's pretty obvious what I'm talking about. So I think education for so many people, and faith could be the key to a life of their dreams, really.
Yeah.
And that wherever you come from, that's possible.
Absolutely. Well, first I must say, my heart goes out to you, because obviously you've had a lot of pain in your life, and it's amazing how those experiences impact you and make you the person that you are. And I think it's that empathy. We all go through things. The question is, do you learn the lesson, and are you willing to help and love on others through that, or just focus on yourself?
Right.
You talk about giving. I think sometimes people look at it as an obligation. To me, it's one of the greatest blessings around.
I bet it is.
And whether you can give of your time, your talent, or your treasure.
Right.
It's this idea of
it's
serving
not just treasure.
others.
And people think it's treasure.
It is.
It's not just treasure.
It's not. And it's about this idea of giving and being a joyful giver, and
Yes.
realizing the blessing of that giving.
Yeah.
And for me, I just say, look every day to say, okay, what is that opportunity, and what can I learn from it? And, some of the best moments are just rolling up your shirt sleeves, or just sitting down and having a cup of coffee with somebody and listening to them. So often I think we all just get so busy, and people are hurting inside, and they just want someone to listen to them. And I think that that's powerful in itself. And that doesn't cost you anything. It just costs you a few minutes of your time in a day.
I just saw a video about homeless people talking about that they're humans, and oftentimes people don't look at them. And when my son and I volunteer at the Denver Rescue Mission, we serve food, and then we get to sit down with the guys. A lot of them are in the New Life program, or families. It's at the Crossing, their family, and New Life. The New Life is a drug rehab program. And when you sit down and hear their stories, it's kind of mind-blowing to me. But also, I've never seen a more powerful example of the transformational power of Christ than in these men.
It is.
Whose lives are completely transformed. Because we talk about Jesus transforming people, but when you see people, one of the guys I had on, Jeff, I put a gun in his mouth. He was so depressed, and he pulled the trigger. And he sat here in front of me right where you're sitting, and he told me, I never felt joy till I found Jesus. I said, why do you think you survived? Not many people survive when they, put a gun in their mouth and they pull the trigger. And he said, I would just believe that I survived to help raise my niece and nephew. But the fact that he'd never in his life ever experienced joy or happiness, and he's a grown man until he found Jesus, was like just like water splashed in my face. Like, do you get how transformational this can be for people? That, letting people know about the hope on the radio can be, because there's somebody right now in the car that's probably listening that won't go to church, but they'll listen to you and me because we're not Bible thumping. We're just talking about how to put Christ into action, faith into action in everyday life. And I just think that what a blessing it is to be able to see, in your case, in your giving more monetarily and space for, and really making it a part of your life, and me being able to deliver the message of Jesus' transformational ability over the radio. What a blessing it is. Like, what an honor it is that we have this opportunity.
Oh, yeah. I'm absolutely humbled by it. And, again, of all the people that the Lord could pick, he picks you and I, right? These broken people that have our faults and issues just like anybody else has. You mentioned the homeless population. I served at the Samaritan House downtown for many years as well. And I always think about, just like your brother that you mentioned, as you pass somebody on the street, that is somebody's daughter. That is somebody's son. And the stats, it's really sad, specifically in Denver, is that the majority of the homeless population are families. And, there's been a lot of issues there. And again, this idea of, my heart goes out to people that don't know the Lord. And again, my goal is to love on them and let them hopefully, find their way, whatever that looks like for them. But the idea of not having faith or not having a relationship with the creator of the universe, I just think it's sad, this idea that this is all we're living for. I mean, living is amazing. It's an amazing blessing, but there's so much more. And I always say, humans, we don't belong here on earth. You think about it, we're in contrast to our environment. And this idea that we have this God-shaped void in each of us. And you can decide what you want to fill that with. Yeah. Do you want to fill it with drugs? Do you want to fill it with exercise? Do you want to fill it with food? Whatever you think you want to fill it with. But I believe that particular space in our hearts and our souls only has one true fit, and that's the Lord. And I hope that people explore that for themselves, and I hope that they have that relationship, because it is a true blessing.
And whatever they're feeling, whatever pain they have, if you fill it with the Lord, it is life-saving. And I truly believe that that's what saved my life, and that I didn't end up like, my brothers. And every time I see someone on the street, I think about him out there, and I don't know if he's alive or not. Mm-hmm. I haven't heard from him since Mother's Day of not this year, but the year before. And so I hope that people have hope. What's next for you? What do you want to do next?
Well, we want to continue to doing what we do. We just last week bought 24 properties around America, 6 million square feet, one of the largest private transactions to be had, and we're going to be releasing that this week. But the majority of these buildings are in communities that never saw the economic rebound. These are struggling communities.
Abandoned buildings?
A lot of vacant ones, abandoned ones, a lot of them in the South and different areas of the country.
And you bought them in one big swoop?
Yeah, the biggest deal of my career. So I worked on it for 2 years, and we finally closed the transaction. So again, we want to create jobs and opportunity and empower people in those communities.
That's a big task.
Well, it's been taking a lot out of me, but it was a worthy one. So I'm glad we got it done. So we want to do that. We're going to continue to do business incubators. We're doing some work, obviously, in the Middle East as well, where we're going over there through a gentleman that works with me by the name of Carl Medeiros. He's a Christian author. He wrote the book Tea with Hezbollah and some other books like that. And we're trying to figure out how we might be more intentional in the Middle East in creating jobs and opportunity and empowering people and in loving on them as well, and see where that may go. And then just continuing to grow our company and try to be smart and wise about what we're doing. One of the other nonprofits I founded, and anybody who's listening is welcome, it's called the Opportunity Coalition. And I founded the opportunity.
Does that have to do with education?
No, it doesn't.
It's another one.
Kind of.
You've got a lot of things going on here. I'm looking at the list.
On a good day. But I founded the Opportunity Coalition a few years ago. And the reason I did is I came from the Western Slope, and I just saw how disconnected the state was. There was people in philanthropy or academics or business or whatever. So we host this monthly event at the Innovation Pavilion. Cool. And we bring in a speaker, someone from, again, academics, charter schools, business, whatever it might be, and they come and they share their golden nuggets of wisdom, and anybody's welcome to attend.
That sounds awesome. How do we find out about it?
Go to opportunitycoalition.com.
Well, that's easy. Brian Watson, That is wonderful. Is that the best place if someone wanted to reach out and find out more about what you do?
Absolutely.
OpportunityCoalition.com.
Or they can go to my website, which is brianwatson.us, and all of our different initiatives and applications for donations, everything are on there.
That is awesome. Will you come back again?
I'd be honored
to. Or at least
to.
Call in because you're pretty busy.
I'd be honored to. Thank you for all the great work you're doing. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian. You're listening to The Good News.